Bienvenidos a todos. ¿Estamos listos? Sí, yeah. If I can have my first slide, it'd be great. Maybe I can get it there. There we go. Well, it's a pleasure to welcome everyone to this wonderful city, this wonderful country, and to bring ASLO to Spain, otra vez, our second time in Spain. I anticipate we're going to have another spectacular and successful meeting based on all past performance here, so I hope that everyone is indeed ready. So we are here in this amazing ancient city of Granada, and perhaps you have noticed up on the hill there seems to be a large building that I've been learning about. Quite impressive. And water seems to have been engineered into this building, as I've learned about it, because those engineers and people had a very serious approach to water, and they planned it ahead of time to make the wonderful things that emerge from water possible. All life, of course, is not possible without water. So it's a wonderful story in Granada. I look forward to learning more about the Alhambra and how it was constructed and its history and architecture. And so water certainly shaped the civilization here. I don't think that's a surprise. I think that if we went to any city in the world, we would find it shaped by water. We would find it shaped by the need every day for water to maintain our health, and the water that maintains our commerce, and the water that maintains our climate. So it is and provides us with food and sustenance. So I think it's impossible to imagine any city, any civilization that has not thought seriously about water in the short term and hopefully in the long term. So I hope that this will be among the themes that we'll explore this week together. So here's a fun slide I found, USGS. I modified it a little bit. If we gathered all the world's water together in one drop, it would be that big one there. And I made this slide to try to humble the oceanographers, because they sometimes need some more humility. So you think your oceans are big, don't you? But they really aren't at all when we compare them in volume to the Earth itself. They are just a very thin skin. So that's the big drop there, but now we need to zoom it a little bit to figure out what all this is here. So now we've zoomed it out a bit. And so now the first drop, as I mentioned, is all the world's water, and of course most of that is salty and in the ocean. Now if we were to remove the oceans, we would have the second one. So that's all of the world's water that's not in the ocean. And that's smaller still, but perhaps you've seen the very tiny blue dot that I had to make because it wasn't in the original version of the slide. That very tiny dot is all the world's water minus the oceans, minus the groundwater, minus the ice. So that's the world of lakes and rivers. And it's the water that we rely on for our daily sustenance and our water supply. So water systems are surprisingly small. They're shockingly small, even the oceans, and certainly the lakes that loom so large in our minds are small. The rivers and streams that we study are small. And so that makes, I think, us appreciate how precious they are and how precious the knowledge about them is that we can gain every day with our work. So that's one thing I wanted to reflect on today or this week as we think about the world's water, north and south. So water is also complicated, as you all know. This is a word jumble that I made using the titles from all of the symposia that are scheduled this week. So all the words are scaled to how frequently they were used and all of the session titles and stuff. And one thing you can see when you look at that is I think what it emphasizes that ASLO is a science about the complications that we find in water when we start to study them and to understand them. And really, when we think about what we study in ASLO as limnologists and oceanographers, really it's about systems. It's about interactions among organisms. It's about interactions between physical forcing and biological processes. So it's really a dynamic scene. So I think that when we look at as you assimilate all the science that that will engulf you during the coming days, I think maybe you'll have the same impression about what we do as a science. Because of that complication, of course, water science is interdisciplinary. And here's a interesting piece of literature, Scienceometrics, that I discovered recently, where they were analyzing the disciplinary breakdown and the international contributions of different disciplines in the earth sciences and environmental sciences. And so here you could just see all the connections among all these different fields. Oceanography there, in the middle, of course, where it belongs, right? And limnology falling to the bottom somehow again. But in any case, that doesn't matter. It's all right. You can't live without us limnologists anyway, because you have to drink water every day. But in any case, so that just emphasizes the interdisciplinarity of our field, but it wasn't the reason I went to this paper, because I went for it because it analyzed the international nature of the scientific literature over time in all of these fields, and the data are sort of summarized in this graph. So it's showing 3 different years of percent of papers with international author lists from 1987 through 2001. I wish I could have gotten a more updated version, but in any case, it wouldn't matter because the trajectories would all be the same. So the global one is all the way on your left there, and these are the top 10 countries for numbers of publications. I apologize to my Spanish colleagues. You were 11th, apparently, so you would just below Australia, at least in this time. But in any case, the upward trajectory there is obvious. And so now I would hazard a guess that 50% of papers globally in the environmental science have international author lists. And this is something that ASLO is increasingly aware of and increasingly important to meet the needs of our members, because our sciences are global, our systems are global, our water is international, and this is what we're trying to accomplish. So here's a map of the membership of ASLO. The blue part of the pie diagrams are the oceanographers, the limnologists are in yellow, and the members who check both boxes, a little schizophrenically, I think I check both usually myself, are in red. And you can see that we have substantial membership spread around the world, and that's in reflection of what our science is becoming. So ASLO has become international because aquatic science is international, and we need a venue to accomplish those interactions, and that's what ASLO services going forward. So this is why we bring the ASLO meeting is outside of North America on a very regular schedule. So our first non-North American meeting was in Copenhagen, and we've had our meeting in Santiago de Compostela, as you see, and Nice, and most recently in Japan. And those are substantial numbers of attendees, and I trust that many active collaborations that are even here today in this room were formed during those meetings, and we will hope for many other such interactions that will form during the coming days. So that's the attendance in the past, and I'm happy to announce that this is the largest meeting of ASLO outside of North America. So we have topped all of those totals, so let's give ourselves a hand. Felicitaciones a Isabel y Mike. Muy bien. So this is a record attendance, 65 countries, 64, something like that. A lot of countries are here and represented, and it's going to be a very dynamic, packed, exciting meeting. You're going to be packed in those rooms, just soaking up as much science as you can, because there are so many of you that have come for this wonderful meeting. So congratulations on that. It's very, very exciting that we've reached this total today. So I also want to extend my thanks to the organizers, to the local host, the University of Granada, for their assistance, to you for coming, and I really am excited about the future, the coming week. Tomorrow during plenary session, I'll be saying a few remarks about the new things that are coming in ASLO, and so I hope you'll join us for that in addition to the rest of the plenary discussions in science. And my final words are, empezamos, disfrutamos, and testeamos. Let's go.